Hey, welcome back to the Xplor podcast with Scott and Ryan. We like to talk real estate, investing, entrepreneurship, and much more. Scott, how's it going?
Pretty good, Ryan. How we doing today?
Doing good, doing good. We got a great guest on today. She is from Boston. She is an investor focused real estate advisor, an agent, and investor herself. She took a big part in building a 40 unit portfolio in just a short time of 3 years, and it's up over 58 units now. Lien Vuong, thanks for coming on.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Leanne. It sounds like you've had quite a bit of success. You're an agent and an investor. Is that correct?
That's right. I was licensed in as a real estate agent in 2019, started investing in 2013.
Okay.
Mhm.
And what got you interested in becoming an agent? So you were an investor first, and then you became an agent. What made you want to become an agent, I guess, after you started investing?
Yeah, so that progression is fairly common. What is not common is if someone is a developer going back into an agent role, because it's, frankly, a little bit of dirty work that they don't want to do. So,
Yeah.
um, at any rate, the reason I got into real estate investing was because I was a part of a family business. We owned a chain of nail salons, so entrepreneurs already from the start. My family and I are originally from Vietnam. And so, like, reinventing ourselves, like, capturing the American dream and opportunity was something that was, not only, I think like necessary, but that was like in our blood, right? So we did pretty well with that. And then we were like, what the heck are we going to do with our money? Uh, you know, Explored a lot of different options, and real estate became the avenue. We, started with like a single family and, kind of grew from there. But after being involved in the family business for like over a decade, I was like, I gotta do something else. I get an itch, and I wanted to just have a different career path. So, what is something that was untapped income, control of my time, something that was entrepreneurial, and something that would support my own investing endeavors is a real estate agent. So that was a natural fit.
Awesome. Yeah, nope, I completely agree with that. So you're in Boston now. Were you born and raised in Boston?
No, my hometown is Halong Bay in Vietnam. I came
Okay,
here when I was nine in 99.
very nice. And have you been in Boston since then?
But yeah, more or less. I mean, came here at, like I said, 99, and yeah, have bopped around different towns and things like that, or all around the greater Boston area.
Okay, awesome. And tell us a little bit about your investing strategy, I guess. So you've built a pretty impressive portfolio already. We were chatting a little bit ago. You've got a pretty amazing goal. So tell us what that goal is that we were just chatting about, and then give us a little bit about your investment criteria and what you're looking for, and kind of what your niche is.
Yeah, so the goal, because I want to put it out there, so then I'm accountable for that goal, right?
love that.
Um, is $2 million of gross rental income by the time I'm 35. I'm
Woo!
32 today. You can Google that quickly. Um,
Happy
That's
so
an
birthday.
amazing goal, by the way. That is, and what's the reasoning for that number?
Okay, so it used to be a million, but I honestly, truth be told, I was probably gonna hit a million, right? At my trajectory. So I said, okay, what's bigger than that? But that's also like a little outrageous because a seven figure like gross income, I think for the average American is a little bit of an outrageous goal. I derived at that number because when I initially started at the 1 million, I figured after everything, after mortgage, like, expenses, everything, I was gonna get to keep 25%. I said, like, let's just be very simple. I can live off of 250, is what I said to myself.
Yes, that's a good
And then
income.
and then I guess I'll make do with 500 right now.
Yeah, I think I'll make do with 500 as well.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
I
that's how
love
that came
that.
along.
So what's it going to look like to get there? Where are you kind of currently at, if you don't mind me asking, and what do you need to do to get to that goal from here?
Let me see where I am in that goal. I'm like 30-ish% in that goal.
Okay.
So for
And you've
sure it's
got
gonna happen.
3 years, so you've got some things to make happen here.
Yeah. But growth is exponential and I believe in the compound effect. So here we go. So in 23, like, after like dealing with frankly kind of like smaller buildings, like BS, like little, 3, 4 units, I'm closing on a 2-family next week, which will be a primary, but after that, pretty much it will all be commercial. Um, so that's how I'm gonna really scale. And I have this like very specific vision. I want a garden style brick building, that's my dream. They're typically 16 to 24 units. That's my dream. I want to own that kind of building. And so that's going to allow me to scale because you have the economies of scale and I'm able to flip it and increase the value like very easily because I underwrite kind of some of the deficiencies of the asset. And then I just know the things to be able to do to be able to increase the value, cash out refi, and rinse and repeat.
So let's talk about that a little bit. So when you're looking for these properties, are they all in Boston or in the upper Northeast, or where are you looking specifically?
So I have two categories of properties, long-term rentals and then short-term. Short-term are like, different states, mostly in the Northeast. I've dabbled in international Airbnbs as well as like Florida, but pretty much for my own stuff right now, I'm just dealing with Northeast. For long-term rentals, it's mostly Massachusetts. I think in order to really execute on this plan, I think I do need to get out of the state, which is like something I just don't want to do. It's mostly just like my own head, but simply there's just not enough buildings to be able to kind of satisfy this.
Yeah, what kind of, you said commercial buildings. Exactly what are you looking for? If you're doing short-term and long-term rentals, are these commercial like multifamily? Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, like apartment buildings, like residential, but commercial asset class.
Got it. Okay. And are you self-funding or are you going out and raising capital to then go and buy these assets?
Yeah, Bank of Lien.
I
What's
love
your
that.
what's your interest rates?
Oh my God, I have one right now. It's like two and a quarter. Like, that's
Wow.
something I'm gonna hold like very close to me. But I closed on something 5.75. I'm looking to do a cash out right now on that asset, and I'll go to like 6.25.
Mhm.
Um, so yes, it's mostly self-funded. I do have
That's
partners with
awesome.
some of the buildings. And they're very simple. They're 50-50 partner. It's 200K, 100, 100. I don't make it complicated. Um, and mostly what I do is like these like refis and like being able to like flip it and basically make sure that I don't have any lazy assets.
So value add type properties are what you're looking for.
Yeah, but I don't do any renovations.
Not any
So
renovations at all.
so this one that I'm probably gonna sell in the next 60 days is like the only property that I feel like I've ever really like done like a larger renovation on. And that was like a 50K renovation, which in my market is literally like nothing.
Yeah.
Um, that was because that was an Airbnb property, but more or less, I don't do the renovations because I frankly have never needed to. I've been blessed by like an increasing market, right? Like an appreciating market. So first and foremost, right? Secondly, I've been able to identify properties that like have the opportunity, right? Like I'm refining and getting it's called return on equity within 9 to 12 months. Like that's insane. Right. So like any
Hmm.
money that I put in, I'm able to refi out. Cause I just evaluate like, if this house, like, we take it as an example, it that I'm doing right now. I bought it for 840 and the rent roll monthly was around 8,300. More or less it was 1%. But I knew it. I saw it and I was like, this is an opportunity, And right now, pretty much 90 days after closing, I've increased the rent roll by 20-ish%. And so already
Wow.
that 840 is now worth like, if you just do it by cap rate because it's a commercial property, it's worth around
Hmm.
1.2. I just did the calculation. So I know that my delta is around 245 that I could get out.
Wow. That is awesome. So I have not met many people that have been able to get in and not have to do any renovations and build equity that quickly. That is impressive. You must really understand the market you're working in and the asset class that you're looking at. And what kind of strategies are you using to find these properties?
Um, I would say 50% of my properties are on market, on market in some way. Anything that's not on the MLS, right? It's a relationship I have with a seller. It's somebody, a friend of a friend, but it's mostly my network, because everyone knows that, like, in order, anybody who wants to talk to me talks real estate. So, like, there's one way or another, it gets introduced. Um, and I got that, like, that 840 building. I did a cash out to be able to put down that payment. So, like, this money keeps, in theory, keeps rolling.
It just keeps coming back, and you're able to kind of use the same money over and over and over again.
Bank of Lien.
That's
Bank of
exactly
Lien.
right.
Hey, so it sounds like you're really good at identifying the properties that they're not pulling as much rent as the property could potentially pull. Is that correct? And do you have like a strategy or a formula that you kind of use to be like, okay, they could be getting this much more per unit?
I think market knowledge, to kind of echo that point, is very important. I can look at a house in a certain town and, like, I know that this could go more. Like, I just know it, you
Yeah.
know. So,
Experience.
like, understanding, like, your local market is really important. That's why, like, I'm, like, hesitant on, like, going outside, but you kind of have to. Um, and then, like, a strategy that I use for myself as well as other agents, apologize for other clients, is stagnant listings. So stagnant listings in my market is anything that's 30 days or further, that, like, doesn't have any bites. One of the buildings that I got, that I'm evaluating to sell, I put an offer on, like, day of it came on the market. I was like, I want it, lock it up, whatever. And then the seller still wanted to shop, not a problem. So this is actually interesting because this links with how Ryan met me on Bigger Pockets.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't accept it, whatever. I said, okay, have the open house, whatever. Two buyers later, the deal doesn't go through. All of a sudden, I get a phone call from the owner who's like, hey, are you Lien Vuong from Bigger Pockets? And I said, yes. He said, you put an offer on my house. So he had obviously Googled me from my offer, because, like, he's like, oh, whatever the heck happened with the first full price offer. And so he Googled me, found that I was a credible person, called me, and pretty much facilitated the deal himself. He was represented by an agent. We worked through that. And that was 475 was my offer. I ended up getting it for 435. Because
Wow.
he's like, I know you're gonna close.
That is awesome. It's crazy how the internet can really, really give you validation in a lot of different ways.
Right.
And people having everything updated on the internet, on LinkedIn, on Bigger Pockets, on all these different platforms. It's crazy how many people really do go look at these platforms and take whatever is put on there as credibility. And most of the time, I'm sure it is. But it just is eye opening to me that so many investors and people that I work with on a day to day, they really do value what they find online.
Well,
Yeah, I mean, I work hard to be able to, like, update it. I could probably be a little bit more open about things, but, sometimes you want to keep things private. But yeah, it's definitely, like, paid me back in spades in terms of what I've given out, in terms of
Absolutely.
exposure.
well, and to that point, nowadays with there's just so many scammers and stuff out there, having a presence and being active on social media. If you're a buyer or seller, an agent, whatever your business is, if I Google you and I see that you're active, when I message you, I know I'm messaging a real person.
Right.
We all probably get messages every day from a profile that has two pictures from 5 years ago. And it's like, are you a real person? I don't
Right.
know.
Right.
So you being very active on Bigger Pockets and other social media, I knew when I reached out to you, you're very transparent. You had like you talked about your stories and it was recent posts. So for me, that was like an indicator of this is a legit person. She has experience, and it's because you have a good social media presence, which is a big strength in this world.
There's nothing better than the real estate glam shots from the 1980s, and they're still using the same photos.
Yeah.
Right.
Realtors are the best at those.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So,
yeah. Where we invented catfishing.
Oh
right.
my goodness.
I love
that
that.
is so true.
Yeah.
So I wanted to shift gears. You have a very ambitious goal. And you have a path that you're going to get there. And I think your experience with you and your family and your investing, I want to hear the story about you guys built a 40 unit portfolio in 3 years, and you're in 3 states and 2 different countries.
Yeah.
Could you expand on that?
So in terms of that, we started like, with my family and I, we bought a home like out of necessity, right? We needed to live in a house, but then we realized we needed to do all these kind of renovations to it. So we did, and we got that house cash because it wasn't frankly very expensive. It was like under 200K. It was like 187 or something like that. So then we did a bunch of renovations to the home. And then I remember my mom going to the bank and they were like, have you ever heard of an equity line of credit? And so I remember it was 240K of that was like the line of credit that they gave us on this house. And it sat in that bank account for at least 12 months. Like we didn't do anything with it because we were like, okay, like here's some money. And then once we we kind of stabilized that home, lived in it, we rented it to some business people. We then had money to play because that's the purchasing power of around $1 million, right? So with that, we bought a batch of properties in Manchester. Within like 12 to 18 months, because remember, this was like probably 15 by the time I started in 13. And then by 15, so like the market was going up. So we were like, okay, like I'm so sick of these buildings, like let's move somewhere else. So then we started to buy like batches. We got a seller financing deal. It was a 16 unit. We drove by this building. It was no money down, seller financing. It was like 2.5% rate. Like it wasn't real. Like we were
Where was
this is not
this?
real.
In
This is
Boston or?
yeah, this was south of Boston. This is like
Okay.
a very much like a C- area of Boston.
Okay.
Um, but these two like little Asian ladies coming up to like knock on the door because it's for sale by owner. And like these are like crazy stories like you hear on Bigger Pockets, but are not real. But
Right.
like it actually happened to me.
And so how many units was that one you said?
That was 16
16.
units. We got that was 16 units, 3 different buildings. So like that was great. There was 5 buildings in Manchester. What was that, like 20-ish units? And then there was another 6 in Fitchburg, all like kind of garbage markets. But that was what you did back then, right?
Right.
Yep.
So then we sold all of Manchester. And then we went to Chicopee, Springfield. So my mom identified this really large portfolio. It was 3 buildings altogether, and she was the one that made me realize oh, you can buy this, like increase the rent roll, decrease the expenses, and just do a commercial flip is what I call it. Clean it up some, whatever, and then just rinse and repeat. 1031.
So you guys 1031 everything?
Yeah, there was only one building we did not 1031, and you bet that's the last one we're not going to do that. Luckily it wasn't a terrible gain, but yes, I do a cost segregation on all my buildings. I do a 1031 exchange. So I extract kind of all the value out of it, and then I move on to the next.
That's awesome. Yeah, cost segregations can really be a game changer. And it's not something that I'm a professional on by any means, but I've been the last couple of months really learning and trying to understand more. It is very impressive if you pay a little bit of money to get cost segregation done, what you've been able to do the last couple of years, especially with 100% depreciation and speeding up your average life cycle on different stuff. You can really play the real estate and tax market if you understand what you're doing.
Yeah, only the poor man go to jail and pay taxes.
Yeah, It is crazy.
That's
So
it.
that's interesting. What how did you go about finding out about cost segregation and doing that, using that whole strategy?
1031 was something that I remember when I was like in real estate class. I like they had talked about,
Hmm.
and I was like, what the heck is that? And then you just Google the heck out of it, right? And then so I got a better understanding of that. Cost segregation I discovered, 3, 4 years ago, and I'm must have been a little bit more, but I was definitely a real estate professional by that point because I could use that deduction really well. So I think it was like through necessity. I'm like really obsessed with cash flow and a reduction of my tax liability because it's not the money you make, it's the money you keep.
Yep.
So um it's just simple math, right? Like if you just increase something and decrease it, it's all from the principles of the richest man in Babylon. If you ever read that book,
Great book.
and
That is a
it's
great book.
so much of my life is very simple and I think a follower of that book, which is your money should be a slave and should bear more children and work more for you, right? More or less of that. So, anyways, cost segregation I discovered as a real estate professional, and the next thing I'm gonna do, I'm trying to figure how to do this is like the solar incentive, because Biden's really obsessed with it, and
Yep.
like whatever he wants me to do to
I
reduce it.
agree. Hey, follow, and people use it, they say, oh, you're taking advantage of this or you're manipulating this. It's like, hang on a second, I'm not taking advantage or manipulating anything. These are the laws and the things that are written. I'm just understanding and learning how to leverage that and use it to my advantage. There's nothing wrong with that. So I think that is very smart move to do. It's still pretty expensive, the solar realm, but I think we are getting close to where it will make sense. Even on maybe duplexes or fourplexes. On single family, it's still very expensive. But if you've got 16, 30 to 30 units, I can see it being very beneficial.
Yeah, I was thinking of putting these on my flat tops, like the larger commercial buildings. I have to kind of evaluate all my roofs and stuff like that. But that is something that I'm like more focused in right now.
What's your number one focus on when you're looking at investments? Like, what's the number one thing that you're looking for in an investment property?
Um, that is a strong asset. And what I mean by strong is like, is it a good building? Like, do I want to own this? Is it kind of decrepit? Am I like, I really hate buildings that have been like patched over like 3, 4 owners and you're like have no idea where things start and end. So I think first and foremost, I underwrite the asset. Like, is this a good building? Is it gonna fall apart? Um, and then with that goes with geographical aspects and then obviously like the economics of the rents and appreciation. But I look at the house.
Okay, yeah. One of my favorite things when I'm buying real estate is to try to find something that has older owners. And I say that because typically the people that have owned a property for a long time, the older folks I've found, at least where we're located, they spend money on a couple things that I hate spending money on. They spend money on the HVAC systems, the roofs, and the windows. Three of the
Mhm.
most expensive things that I don't want to spend money on, but it really makes a big difference. So we're always looking to buy from people that have held assets for a while and done those kind of updates.
Absolutely. What market are you in?
Kansas City mainly.
Okay, I got
So
it.
recently started spreading out quite a bit more across country, but heavily in Kansas City. The last decade or so, I guess. 2015 started investing here, so it's
And
been a
those are
great market.
singles,
Yeah,
probably.
most of them are singles. Got a few small multi, but nothing crazy big on the multi. Now into the industrial developments and owning industrial ground as well.
Right.
So it's been good. So tell us about your real estate agent business. What does that look like? Are you working with investors? Are you working with retail clients?
I don't, for the most part, do not work with retail clients. I work with investors, one of two categories. which is like a developer who's looking for land development. Sometimes we have a big market of condo conversions in this area, which is like a triple decker or duplex. They chop it into two condos because the entry price for home is so high here that there's value
Mm-hmm.
in doing that. So I will identify those opportunities, buy and sell those. And then secondly, I will represent clients who are looking for multifamily buy and hold. Sometimes there's a mix of both, right? Like, I don't development is a job. So like, I think everybody who's in development wants to be a buy and hold investor, but they're typically doing it just so then they can have some funds to be able to buy the holds. But I represent mostly clients, one of those two categories.
Got it. And then
Uh,
you mentioned that you do short-term rentals. Tell us a little bit about what that looks like.
Yeah, short-term rental for me started in 2016. My family and I, like, we just keep accidentally doing this stuff. And
Seems like it works out pretty well for you.
you know what it is? Like, it's that we're willing to do anything. People love to talk. Like, I mean, whether like we certainly make mistakes. Like I think that goes without saying, but we're willing to do it. Like, if I'm interested in something, okay, let's go, let's see it. Like, let's just take a ride, you know? And I remember my mom and I used to be like, where's Fitchburg? We used to like spend the day, like grab a coffee and go drive around, drive around. Like, you just got
I
to do
love
something,
that.
you got to move. Um, so in 2016, we we went down for vacation to Naples, Florida. We were just like having a little fun, and we discovered this town of Naples, which is beautiful, very affluent. If anyone's
Yes.
ever been there, I had never been exposed to like that amount of wealth. Like, that's no joke. So many Bentleys, and we were, looking on Zillow, whatever. I found this little rinky dink house. It was like 365, 380 or something, which is nothing because it's a seven-figure market. And we bought it, whatever, and then we were gonna use it, we were gonna vacation and we were never gonna do that. So we're like, okay, mom, like let me throw it on Airbnb, like people do this. So it was full furnished and everything. So that's when we discovered it. We were lucky that we already had staff down there. Like, we had built all these kind of organic relationships. Um, 2 years
Staff
later,
through real estate or staff through what staff was already down there?
so like the contractor who kind of like, did some renovations on the home,
Gotcha. Okay.
his wife was a cleaner, so she cleaned the house. I mean, we joke that she owns a house because like she has spent way more time there than like
Right.
any of us. Um, so then my mom bought two condos in Vietnam, which is my home country. And so we Airbnb that. And then so we have another property in Florida, but she's not going to Airbnb that. So pretty much I focus my portfolio of short-term rentals in the Northeast. We have five properties, launching a sixth. And in 2023, hopefully, I would love to get a compound. Like, I'm obsessed with this idea of having like, like one of those 5 to 10 unit, like kind of getaway house kind of things.
Yeah. That no, that would be very cool to own. Just to tell people you own a compound.
Right.
So
Exactly.
I do have a question referring to the Airbnbs and vacation short-term rentals. Scott and I did a podcast on this a while back, but a lot of cities and governments are starting to roll out a bunch of regulations. San Diego was a big example. The market's just flooded with Airbnbs, pushing the local residents out because prices are being jumped up. There's nowhere to buy. Are you seeing any new regulations or potential laws being pushed through up in the Northeast that might affect your Airbnb business?
There are, I mean, for the most part, like we fine-tuned that already in the past like few years. So wherever they have regulations is already pretty much in place. The only thing in a town or area that is still kind of negotiating through that, I would say, is in the Conway area, which is what we call the Lakes region of New Hampshire. It's a very popular vacation destination area because it's about 2 hours, so you can do a nice weekend trip.
Hmm.
So they have experienced the same thing, like, reduction of local housing, no more like long-term rentals. So it's really hurting the local economy in
Right.
terms of shelter. Um, so that's the only one that we kind of have to navigate. But all my other properties are in vacation areas already that like pretty much is a secondary home market. So regulations already in place that part of the economy is very important, to support the local community. So they want to sustain it and do it in a respectful way.
Yeah, no, I think you hit that right on the head. What do you see when it comes to short term versus doing a long term rental on income and profits and gross rent? How much more are you earning on a short term rental compared to if you put that same property long term? What do those numbers look like? Do you have any idea on that?
Yes. So I'll tell you kind of the pluses and minuses of both sides. The bottom of it is that I'm a long-term rental girl. So wherever I can find a building that makes sense for me to buy, I'm gonna buy it. Um, in the same breath, like whenever it's a short-term opportunity that makes sense, I will also buy it. But people are like, oh, pick one. Like I'm a long-term person because it's always gonna be there and they're gonna have consistent rent. To compare with you and to answer that question, we bought a cabin in the western part of the state near this like ski mountain, the 325. It's making gross rental income 80K. That thing is booked up
And that's a
all the
year.
dang time. Sorry?
80,000 a year.
Yeah, annually.
That's really
I mean
good.
it's made, some months as much as like 9,500, so it does
Wow.
pretty well. Um, and so we've launched like other buildings around that, like, because we understand the traffic.
What would
So
that
that's
rent monthly as a long term rental? What would that bring in?
I would say 1,500, 1,800.
Oh,
My
wow.
dad's around like 1,900. I don't think it could hit 2K. That's just a lot of money for a family to afford, especially in that area. So I don't foresee them being able to hit 2K, even though it's a single family home. Um, but I mean, it 3, 4x, right? Like even if you're subtracting cleaning fees and things like that.
Yeah, I was going to ask you. That was my next question. What does it look like net income off of that? So is it about 50% or so between cleaning fees, management fees, everything else, or do you self manage these?
So we have a company. So like my business partner and I, we own the Airbnb business, which is stay at our house. And so we self-manage, but we also manage other people. Like we have our own infrastructure.
Got it.
Um, so we there is a line item for management, but pretty much in the end, we're netting probably 30 to 40%.
That's really good. Yeah, no, it
Yeah.
seems like the Airbnb business, the management fees are 20 to 30%. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, we charge 25%.
Yeah, that's kind of the going rate that we've heard around the country from different people we've talked to. Here in Kansas City, that's probably similar. We don't have as much of an Airbnb market as other destinations do, so it might be a little bit cheaper here or there. But that is uh, it sounds like a lot of money, but people don't realize how much it takes to manage some of these Airbnbs. There is a lot of communication and processes that go into each property.
Yeah, our management offering, if you will, is like I think a little bit more special than just regular PM. And so that's why we actually don't like take kind of old properties that don't fit our criteria into our brand. So our management is not just like, you understand the offering of a regular management company, communication, vendors, finances, etc., right? And payout. So we do all that, the fundamentals, but what we do is we actually set up the home for you. So, a 123 Main Street, this is the right cabin. We will design it. We have in-house a designer. We
Nice.
will execute it. We'll order it. We have great pricing, typically around 25 to 35% of retail on all like any major brands, like even West Elm, things like that. So we're in so many ways, like we're free. Like, if you
Full
were
service.
self-managing, maybe you would make 5K and that's great for you. But we know that we can make you 7. So like pretend that we're not even there and you're gonna get an incredible level of service and someone's gonna take care of your home.
That's awesome. Yeah, the full service piece is huge.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So I'm gonna jump to the questions. We're getting a little long on time here.
Yeah.
So could you share a personal story of a financial decision you made that had a significant impact on you and your family, and then what you learned from that experience?
Um, the a financial decision that I made, um, I would I would say that like, one of the best like financial decisions that I made was to be able to buy my first like house hack. Like being able to like really understand that like taking this like real estate commission to be able to basically reinvest it in the home, like that's just like, it was like really scary. It was like my first property that I bought myself, without my family. But I think that's been not only as the asset has been fruitful, but that experience through it has really paid dividends in kind of everything that I've done subsequently.
Good
That's
answer.
awesome.
Yeah. And then this question kind of about motivation. How do you stay motivated during challenging times? And then what advice would you give to people who might be struggling to maintain motivations in their business or personal pursuits?
How do I stay motivated is like, I guess for me, like I just remember my goal, right? Like it's really important just to have like whatever your X is, whatever your Y is. So my X is that I want to have $2 million of gross rental income. My
Right.
Y, like quite literally my Y, is because that will buy me freedom. My freedom from like answering phone calls I don't want to answer, like dealing with every day's bullshit, right? But like truly dealing with the bullshit you don't really want to answer. That $2 million in theory would buy me that freedom, right? And
Yep.
so I think having that very clearly outlined and like being reminded and like for telling people, right, select audiences, because like people are gonna shoot this down. I kind of don't tell some of my personal friends this because it's like it's really outrageous. They're like, what are you talking about? Like it's too many zeros.
Right.
Yep.
Um, so I would, I mean, for me, that's how I stay motivated. And for anybody who's like kind of struggling with that, I would kind of do a deep internal deep dive of like, why do you want to make these decisions? Um, because I represent some like investors, like some newbie investors. They're like, I want to replace my income, my active income with my rental income. But why? Like, well, I don't want to work. You barely worked. Like the 5 minutes that you worked, you want to replace that. Like they want to like, put fire, financial independence, retire early on their little emblem on Instagram. But like they don't understand that you have to earn it, right? Like they haven't necessarily felt enough pain to be able to solve the problem.
Yep. It's the mindset that we want it all, we want it now
Right.
versus we've got to actually get take time, work hard to get there. And real estate is not an overnight success thing. I will tell you that right now firsthand. I'm sure you could agree with me. It takes a lot of work and a lot of sleepless nights. Sounds like you're buying way nicer properties than what I was able to start with, but I mean, if it rains hard, I'm staying up at night because I'm worried tenants are going to call. And it, 7 years into this thing now, and like it's starting to feel a little bit like there's some runway at the end of the road, but it's been a grind, and you're not going to get into this business, and you might get lucky on your first deal or two. That doesn't mean you're going to be financially free. It takes time. You got to continually do it over and over again because you are going to get smacked in the face and knocked down every once in a while. You just got to make sure that those hits are smaller than the wins on the back end of it all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to kind of like address those like sleepless nights, like, yes, like, of course, I have like versions of that. But one of the like the big X factors as to how I'm able to scale in all different rental strategies is like I'm very intentional about hiring out work. So, like,
Yep.
I know next week when I close on this two family, like, Dan, my management company, is gonna come in and he's gonna do the turnover for me, and then I'm not gonna have to look at these tenants. Like it's gonna be all set. So like understanding that work is delegated to the right professional who you know and trust that can handle it. I think gives you a lot of courage and a lot more energy to literally fundraise or to be able to get capital to do your job really well so you get money faster to buy more buildings.
And you've got a lot of energy, I can tell.
Yeah. Talk to me in the morning.
Well, Lien, we really appreciate you coming on. You have a cool story, big goals. We can't wait to follow up with you to, watch you achieve those goals. If you have a big party when you hit it, we'd love to be invited.
I think that would be fun, huh?
Yeah, definitely.
Let's have a party on a yacht.
That's what we're talking about.
Okay.
Right. There's a big port out of Boston, so there should be several out there, right?
Exactly.
So was there anything that you're working on or anything you want to plug where people can find you, stuff like that?
You can find me on Instagram and LinkedIn, Facebook.
Bigger Pockets.
Yeah, Bigger Pockets, Lien Vuong. There should only be one of me. So that I'm writing a book in 2023, how to house hack in a high cost of living area.
Very nice.
And I'm doing a webinar course in my spare time.
I was going to say, you're busy.
Yeah. Everything feeds each other.
Yeah. And it's crazy when you're that busy, how focused you stay and how it almost seems like it's easier to be busy than it is to be slow and doing nothing.
I agree.
You're just so focused when you're that busy.
Right.
Yeah. Well, hey, it was great having you. Thanks for coming on.
Yes.
We definitely want to have you on again. Maybe when you get the book start rolling out, come on.
Keep us posted on that. I'd love to hear a little bit more when you're getting close to finishing it. And please let us know when you do finish it so we can make sure to grab a couple copies and hopefully give them out to some speakers or guests on the show.
Absolutely. We'll talk soon. Thanks, guys.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on the next one.